Ryan Blaney was not a happy camper after the race at Bristol this evening. He spoke with some of the press afterwards and made it very clear that he thinks Goodyear is lying about them not bringing a new tire. And when asked about Ross Chastain, he immediately ended the talk and walked away. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at John Trent Racing. So this is courtesy of Front Stretch. They spoke with Ryan Blaney following the race. He finished in, I believe, Bob Pockrass has the results here. He finished in 16th, right behind Ross Chastain, who finished in 15th. He was having a pretty decent run early on in the race, but I don't know if there was some kind of strategy or something like that was happening. He ended up fading, went 3 wide. Ross Chastain kind of went under him, gave him some Bristol thunder. And then he kind of just got moved up the track, got pushed around in the middle of that racetrack, and then really never recovered after that. But this is what he had to say to Front Stretch following the race.
Did you enjoy the shit show?
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, I didn't have fun. I mean, what's fun about riding around, creeping around there? Can't run 50 laps unless you blow a tire. You got guys with blown stuff, creeping around the racetrack. I can't believe it wasn't an accident. Everybody blew a tire there before the last pit stop. You know what it reminded me of? Like, first half of the race, it reminded me of, it was the Daytona fuel shape. That was what it was. And literally, we were 2x2. You're creeping around there, quarter throttle, saving your tires, and you just don't know when you want to go or not. So, they say it's brought the same tire, but that is absolutely yes.
That's like if you knew, like people want tire wear, right? And then, so this was too extreme. But like if you had a few extra sets, would that have been okay, or does it just need to?
If you bring a new tire like this, they're going to deny they brought a new tire, but obviously it's different. You have to test it. Like, you can't just show up at the racetrack and run 500 laps with it. Like, you have to have a tire test. That's why we do tire tests. Or if you don't, this is what it ends up like. So, you know, yeah, we want wear and fall off, but like, you have to have an idea of how it's gonna wear off first. And that is at a tire test. You can't just unload something out of the blue and have what it's supposed to be. So, I don't know. I bet it was entertaining for everybody to watch. Yeah, I bet it was wild. A little bit of a wild race. Not a good way.
Did you feel like you could control your, like, some people say they put in the driver's hands. Did you feel like it was in your hands at all on controlling anything, or?
Not really. I mean, to some extent, but like, we got our car pretty good before the last restart. Got to 6th. Made a little change and it didn't work. And so then the riding I had to do, I was slower. So I just got moved up the bottom and you get used up. And then you're in the middle and you're wearing your stuff out with guys abusing you. So it's like, yeah, if you're like kind of a really good car, you can still kind of save your stuff and like be good with it. Yeah, that's just too extreme. I mean, I understand it's the right path, but you got to let us know. You got to have a tire test, or we have to like talk about this before we come here and race, so we have an idea of like what we're doing. So. Yeah.
You had a run-in with Ross Chastain, and
I'm tired of you asking me, Ross.
So there you have it. Obviously, he does not believe that Goodyear brought the same tire that they did last year. He thinks it is a brand new tire and that Goodyear is going to deny it. He's also not happy that they brought the new tire, did not do what he says should have been a tire test because it is a new tire, and that teams should have been able to prepare for it, and really didn't like what happened in this race. And then obviously he gets asked that question there about Ross Chastain, and he abruptly exits the interview and walks away. So this is actually what Goodyear had to say earlier in the race. This is Goodyear's Greg Stucker. He spoke with members of the media. This is from Bob Pockrass, the Fox NASCAR reporter. Let's take a listen to what Stucker had to say about the tire fall off. He actually does, I think, call it a little bit too extreme, and he doesn't like that it was falling off after 50 laps. But we did see a number of drivers, including Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and Brad Keselowski, actually push it, I think, above 70 laps on that one really long green flag run. So we did see some drivers were able to save their stuff enough to get almost double what some other drivers were unable to do. But let's take a listen to what Greg Stucker had to say here.
spring, right?
No, the same tire combination as last.
Last fall, yes.
Just to back up, so we tested here last year with the intent to come up with a tire package that generated more tire wear. That was the request from NASCAR and the teams, and we feel like we had a very successful test. We feel like we had a very successful race in the fall of last year because we did exactly that. We ran a full fuel stop. Definitely saw wear, but we thought it was spot on. So now we're trying to understand what's different, why is the racetrack behaving differently this weekend than what it did a year ago. It's the same package, it's the same tire combination. Obviously, the difference is resin was placed on the lower groove instead of the PJ1. Yet I still think the racetrack should be taking rubber as it did last fall. Took rubber immediately during that race. So still a bit of an unknown as far as why it's not behaving the same way, that being the racetrack. But that's kind of what we know now. Obviously, everybody's kind of in the same boat. Some guys are able to manage through it a little bit better than others, but it's still a tough situation, and we're just going to have to try to understand exactly what's happening, what's different, and adjust from there.
Was Goodyear consulted on whether to use resin or PJ1?
No, that was a track decision. There was a conversation late last night, this morning, as to whether or not to reapply, which they ended up doing.
You said that this is a tough decision or a tough situation, Greg. Tire wear, though, is not bad. Is this just maybe a little bit too much?
I would agree. Tire wear is always the goal. I mean, that's what people want to see. It creates comers and goers and who manages tires the best. But like I say, we thought we were in a really good spot last year with the tire as we raced it in the fall, and obviously something's different now. So this is too drastic.
So there you go. You hear that he says he calls it too drastic, but he does say it is the same tire combination from last year. He's putting the blame on the resin as to why the tires were falling off so quickly. We were seeing, at least early in the race, a number of drivers were seeing massive fall off from their tires, pretty much going all the way down to the cords. We saw Kyle Busch have a flat tire. A number of other drivers had flat tires as well around lap 40. Eventually, they were able to kind of stretch it to around 50 laps. And then obviously, as I mentioned before, we saw drivers like Denny Hamlin, who eventually won the race, Martin Truex Jr., and Brad Keselowski, who finished 1, 2, and 3. They were able to push it to 70, almost 80 laps on a set of tires there at the end of the race. But getting back to what Ryan Blaney had to say, I think it's a little bit of sour grapes. I think obviously he struggled to manage his tires. His car obviously wasn't as set up as well as maybe some of the other drivers, like Denny Hamlin, like Martin Truex Jr., like Brad Keselowski. He got back into the muck there. It really kind of set him back, and he just didn't have a good time of it because he just didn't have a good car. And I think that's why he might be a little bit frustrated there. I think if he's Brad Keselowski, he's finishing in third. He's probably not saying what he's saying here. He might be having, maybe even if he's Kyle Larson, he's saying what Kyle Larson is saying. He's like, yeah, I had fun. I don't know how I finished up in fifth, but I did, and I'm glad I'm here. But obviously he doesn't want to address Ross Chastain issues either. I don't know why NASCAR seems to be so... I don't know if it's like it's coming down from NASCAR or if it's just the drivers don't want to engage in any of this stuff, but they seemingly don't want to create any rivalries, and I just don't understand why. I'll be honest, like I'll share my bias here. Ryan Blaney's probably my top guy in the NASCAR Cup Series. Ross Chastain, ironically, is number 2. That move at Martinsville totally endeared me towards him. I love that move. I loved the aggressiveness. I love the no fear, the like actually putting himself in a dangerous situation in order to try and make that championship race, and it paid off for him and won me a ton of respect doing that move. But I would love to see these guys. These are my top 2 drivers. I would love to see them have a rivalry. I'd love to see any kind of rivalry out there. I just don't feel like there's any real true rivalries in NASCAR anymore. I mean, I guess when I was younger and I was watching stuff in the 90s, Mark Martin was my driver. I mean, Mark Martin was probably the cleanest guy out there, but there was still a big rivalry between him and Dale Earnhardt Sr. when they were both racing for the championship. Between him and Jeff Gordon, when they were racing for the championship, you also had other guys like would have these like rivalries, mixing it up. I mean, Jimmy Spencer was they called him Mr. Excitement for a reason. We don't have anyone really like that, and it doesn't seem like any of these drivers really want to have any of those rivals. I feel like Ross Chastain was the only one who really wanted to engage in that. He was building a rivalry with Denny Hamlin. And then Rick Hendrick decided to step in and basically shut that down. And I think that was just an absolute terrible for the sport. And I want to see a rivalry. Give me a rivalry. That's why I think that's one of the big draws to sports in general is team rivalries. When I watch hockey, I'm like a Washington Capitals fan. I hate the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're our number one rivals. Pittsburgh Penguin fans hate the Philadelphia Flyers. They're their rivals. Like, rivalries are good for the sport, and I just don't think NASCAR has any right now. And they need to get some. They need to get some rivalries. Whether I don't want it to be inorganic. I'd love to see it. And I think there is a really good one here brewing between Blaney and Ross Chastain. And it doesn't seem like they really want to embrace it here. They need to take a playbook out of Bubba Wallace's book when he's talking to the media and play this stuff up. I think that would be much more entertaining. But those are just kind of some of my thoughts here. I actually enjoyed the race at Bristol. I thought it was great. I love seeing the tire management stuff. I love seeing the tire wear off. I love seeing some of the guys trying to really work at it to save that stuff. And you kind of did see some of the more veteran drivers were able to get it done over some of the other guys. And I don't know. I like this stuff. I mean, I'm a short track guy. I love watching late model stocks. That's what I grew up watching. I grew up just about like 3 miles from Old Dominion Speedway in Manassas, Virginia, the birthplace of late model stock car racing. So that's what I grew up watching. That's what I love. And so this really was kind of a callback to that. And I love seeing it. It's like watching a race at Florence Motor Speedway. It's like watching a race at Hickory, some of those really abrasive short tracks. And I loved it. And that's what a lot of people like to say. So I disagree with Goodyear. I don't think it was really drastic. I'd love to see maybe you get it to where it's 70 laps or something like that. Still less than the fuel window. So you really do have to see them kind of save their stuff, work their stuff, and see who can actually push the car to the limit, push their skills to the limit, and really go out there and race each other. And I think that would be that was really entertaining. And I think we got some of that. I mean, like I said, we saw Hamlin, Truex, and Keselowski pushing their cars to almost 80 laps on a set of tires. So I love the race. I thought it was great, and I do think Ryan Blaney was just sour grapes there because he just didn't have a good finish. But those are my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you guys make of that in the comments below.